Warning, your brain is literally leaking. 7 a.m. The alarm snaps and there's a metallic taste in your mouth. Your head feels pressurized, like someone tightened a valve behind your eyes. You try to say your coworker's name and come up blank. Yes, your brain leaks waste every night. If that drain clogs, neurons drown in their own leftovers. Some nights your brain gets a full wash. Other nights, it doesn't. The difference decides whether that name pops right up or vanishes. One habit tonight will either unclog the system or cement the damage. To see why, we need to rewind to the night your brain becomes a car wash. What's really leaking? Your brain runs hot. Every thought, every text you compose leaves chemical byproducts behind. Spent neurotransmitters, lactate, and broken protein fragments like beta-amyloid and tau. Everywhere else in your body, the lymphatic system carts that junk away. But the old dogma said the brain had no lymphatics. So for a century, we assumed the brain's cleanup happened slowly, invisibly, and mostly inside cells. We were wrong. There's plumbing, hidden, dynamic, and almost theatrical. A clear fluid called cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, doesn't just cushion the brain, it moves. It's pulled in along arteries, swirls through brain tissue, and flushes waste out along veins and into lymphatic vessels around the skull. When it works, you wake up sharp. When it doesn't, the leftovers stack up. Here's where we're going. We'll follow the discovery that blew the doors off the no drainage myth. Iliff and Nedergaard's 2012 work in mice that mapped a glia-powered perivascular clearance network now called the Glymphatic system. Then we'll see the moment 2015 made it undeniable in humans, when Louveau and Kipnis mapped real lymphatic vessels along the dura, draining to deep cervical nodes. We'll watch the wash turn on, the Noradrenaline drop at night that shrinks brain cells and opens space by roughly 60%. The aquaporin 4 water channels on astrocyte end feet that act like gates, and the heartbeat that literally pumps CSF in with every pulse. And we'll tie this to your nights. Which sleep stage opens the drain, what phones and late meals quietly break, why side sleeping moves more waste than lying on your back, how slow nasal breathing at about 6 breaths per minute preps the pressure pump, and how timing, heat, cold, age, inflammation, and myths all bend the flow. At the end, you'll have a 30-day plan to make the wash run. The discovery nobody saw coming. The story starts in a quiet lab in Rochester in 2012. Jeffrey Iliff and Maiken Nedergaard were staring at the same problem that stumped generations. If the brain is so metabolically hungry, where does all the trash go? They injected tiny fluorescent tracers into the CSF of living mice and used 2-photon microscopy to watch. The dye didn't just diffuse randomly. It rushed along the outsides of arteries into brain tissue and then slipped out along veins. It rode channels formed not by pipes, but by cells, astrocytes, whose end feet hugged blood vessels and were studded with aquaporin 4 water channels. This wasn't passive seepage, it was a directed perivascular flow. They called it glymphatic, glia plus lymphatic. The old belief that the brain lacked true drainage wasn't foolish. No one had seen clear lymphatic vessels inside the brain. The skull, the pressure, the delicacy of the tissue, everything made it hard to catch fluid in motion. But what Iliff and Nedergaard showed reframed the question. Maybe the brain used a hybrid, with CSF pushing through brain tissue and exiting along veins, and then somehow into lymphatics outside the parenchyma. Meanwhile, something else was happening that nobody expected. In 2013, follow-up work showed that the glymphatic system didn't run the same way day and night. It exploded during sleep. When animals slipped into deep, non-REM sleep, the space between neurons and glia expanded dramatically, on the order of 60%, allowing CSF to exchange with interstitial fluid like a tide rolling through a harbor. The suspected switch? Noradrenaline. High when you're awake and alert, it keeps cells slightly swollen and the space tight. Drop it at night and the cells shrink, the space widens, and flow surges. Here's where it gets crazy in a quiet, scientific way. The pump isn't a separate muscle, it's your heartbeat. Arterial pulsation literally drives CSF into those periarterial spaces with every beat. When arteries stiffen with age, that pulse-driven pump weakens. When aquaporin 4 channels lose their tight polarization on astrocyte end feet due to aging or injury, the exchange slows. 3 bottlenecks appear. Inflow at the arteries, exchange at the astrocyte interface, and outflow along veins and into lymphatic routes. For a moment, critics could still argue, this is mice under anesthesia. Does any of this exist in humans? In 2015, Two groups answered from a different angle, Antoine Louveau and Jonathan. Kipnis at the University of Virginia, and independently, a team led by Kari Alatalo in Helsinki, mapped bona fide lymphatic vessels in the dura mater, the outer meningeal layer. These vessels lined the dural sinuses, expressed classical lymphatic markers, carried fluid and immune cells, and connected to the deep cervical lymph nodes. Suddenly, the path out of the skull was visible. CSF and solutes could leave along perivascular and perineural routes, enter meningeal lymphatics, and drain to the neck. What nobody knew at the time was how tightly all of this danced with sleep architecture. Human studies began to link slow wave activity, the big synchronized slow oscillations of deep NREM, with CSF surges and blood volume shifts like a coordinated in-out tide. In scanners, researchers saw waves of CSF enter the ventricles and sweep through in lockstep with those neural rhythms and vascular changes. The wash wasn't background hum. It was a performance staged in N3 sleep. Stakes? They're not abstract. Beta-amyloid, the sticky peptide that accumulates in Alzheimer's disease, clears more during sleep and piles up when flow stalls. Tau, another misfolding-prone protein tied to neurodegeneration, follows suit. Even ordinary byproducts like lactate, fuel during sprints, fog when it lingers, depend on this nightly convection. Fragment the flow with late caffeine, blue light, or a night of micro-awakenings, and the trash truck doesn't show. According to rodent work from Helene Benveniste and colleagues, even body position tweaks the wash. Side sleeping, lateral decubitus, move tracers more efficiently than lying on the back or stomach. It hasn't been definitively proven in humans yet, but it tracks with something simple. Airway stability, venous return, and pressure gradients all shape clearance. Meanwhile, meningeal lymphatics weren't just present, they aged. In animal models, their function dulled with time. Couple that with stiffer arteries and mislocalized aquaporin 4, and the system bogs down. It's a plausible bridge between sleep disruption in midlife and protein buildup decades later. Not destiny, just mechanics you can influence. There's another lever hiding in plain sight: breath. Slow nasal breathing creates gentle pressure oscillations in the chest and venous system that ripple up to the cranium. Around 6 breaths per minute, resonance breathing, the whole cardiorespiratory system steadies. It's not magic, it's physics meeting physiology. Smoother pressure means smoother CSF movement riding those arterial pulses. So, to see the pipes is one thing, to feel their rhythm is another. This was the moment everything changed for how we think about foggy mornings and aging brains. The brain isn't sealed. It's bathed, pumped, and drained on a schedule. And the schedule is sleep. How the night wash actually works. To watch the wash turn on, zoom into a single artery diving into cortex. With every heartbeat, its wall swells a hair's breadth. That tiny pulse pushes a sleeve of clear CSF down the periarterial space, like a plunger stroke. The fluid doesn't wander. It's guided by a living lining. Astrocyte end feet wrap the vessel in a tight mosaic, and studded across those end feet are aquaporin 4 water channels, AQP4, gateways that let water slip in and mingle with the brain's interstitial fluid. On the far side, along veins, matching sleeves provide the exit lanes. Inflow along arteries, exchange through AQP4, outflow along veins. Simple map, complex choreography. Here's the switch that decides whether that map hums or jams. Noradrenaline. By day, noradrenaline is high, keeping cells tensed, the extracellular space tight. At night, assuming you're not getting pinged awake, levels fall. Cells relax and shrink just enough to widen the gap between them. In that widened gap, CSF can move, carrying dissolved waste toward the venous sleeves. It's the difference between pushing water through a sponge and through packed clay. Same pump, new permeability. Think about the bottlenecks. First, inflow. You need a healthy pulse. Stiffer arteries, age, hypertension, blunt that micropiston. Second, exchange. You need AQP4 channels anchored where the action is, polarized to the astrocyte end feet. Injury and aging can scatter them, like moving toll booths off the highway. Third, outflow. You need low-resistance routes along veins and then out through meningeal lymphatics to the deep cervical nodes. Collapse venous return with odd neck angles, congest your nose so your mouth breathe, and jerk your pressures around, and you've built friction right where you want glide. Meanwhile, something else is moving in parallel above the cortex. Meningeal lymphatic vessels. They track the dural sinuses, like quiet service roads, picking up fluid and immune cells from CSF and ferrying them toward the neck. They don't replace the periarterial perivnous wash inside the brain, but they matter for the handoff at the edge. When they falter with age or after, inflammation clearance suffers not because the pump is gone, but because the last mile backs up. Now layer in the night's rhythms. The big CSF surges aren't a steady faucet. They come in coordinated waves during deep non-REM sleep, when slow, synchronized brain oscillations pair with blood volume changes. Blood ebbs, CSF flows in. Blood returns, CSF recedes. The pulsation from your heart rides on top of that slower tide, like chop on a swell. Naps can catch a ripple of it, but the richest, most consolidated wash happens in those first long stretches of N3 when you protect a stable drop in noradrenaline. This is where tiny choices either widen or narrow the pipe. Alcohol sedates you, but it fragments deep sleep and keeps noradrenaline from staying low. Late caffeine antagonizes adenosine, the signal that pressures you into slow waves. Blue light in the evening delays melatonin, shifting the whole schedule so the slow wave window arrives later, and often gets clipped by your alarm. You can't brute force the wash. You set conditions and let biology do the heavy lift. There's a pressure story in your chest that reaches your skull. Slow nasal breathing, especially in the minutes before bed, settles the seesaw in intrathoracic pressure. At roughly 6 breaths per minute, the heart, vessels, and vagus nerve fall into a resonance that reduces jitter in blood pressure and venous return. Less jitter means more predictable arterial pulsation at the brain's entry ports and steadier outflow at the exits. Mouth breathing, by comparison, dries airways, ramps sympathetic tone, and produces larger, choppier swings. The pump still beats. The plumbing hates turbulence. Microstory. A software lead with perfect sleep duration wakes groggy. He swears it's just stress. Then he switches evening doom scrolling for a warm shower an hour before bed, runs 5 minutes of 6 per minute nasal breathing, and sleeps on his side with a slight head incline. His total hours don't change. 2 weeks later, the blank name moments shrink. Nothing mystical happened. Inflow improved as his heart's micropiston met steadier pressure. Exchange improved because he preserved deep sleep, and the noradrenaline drop that widens space and keeps AQP4 doing its job. Outflow improved with better venous return and a nose that stayed open. If you boil it down, the glymphatic wash depends on 3 questions. Can the heartbeat deliver clean strokes of CSF into periarterial sleeves? Can water actually cross into tissue through well-placed AQP4 when the space is wide? And can the mixture get out along veins and into meningeal lymphatics without traffic jams? Every lever will touch. Light, meals, temperature, posture, breathing, timing, answers one of those questions. Keep the pump elastic, keep the gates where they belong, keep the exits clear. Then get out of the way and let the night do its work. Sleep architecture. The drain only opens here. Deep sleep isn't just nice, it's the only time the drain fully opens. In the first third of the night, you're primed for NREM stage N3, the slow wave phase. Neurons fire together, then go quiet together, creating huge, rolling, slow oscillations. Blood volume dips in synchrony, and cerebrospinal fluid surges in to fill the space. It's rhythmic, mechanical, and precise. Miss this window, and the wash never peaks. Here's how the choreography works. Those cortical slow oscillations, the up and down states, time lock with sleep spindles and larger vascular shifts. When the network drops into an off period, local blood flow ebbs, and CSF is literally drawn inward. When the network rises, blood returns and CSF recedes, carrying dissolved waste toward the venous routes. Your heartbeat rides on this tide, delivering microstrokes of inflow on top of a slower, deep water swell. The effect is amplification. The pump you already have gets more efficient because the timing is right. REM sleep plays a different role. Neuromodulators flip, the brainstem takes the wheel, and noradrenaline patterns aren't the same. REM is critical for memory integration, emotional calibration, and sensory motor rehearsal, but it isn't the main wash cycle. The big rinse belongs to N3. Think of REM as the rewiring shift and N3 as the plumbing shift. You need both, just not for the same job. Fragmentation is the enemy here. Every alert ping, every half-wake to scroll, each apnea-induced gasp. That's a spike of noradrenaline and a tear in the slow-wave fabric. The extracellular space narrows, CSF surges flatten, and you fall out of sync. People say, I got 8 hours. But if those hours are chopped into pieces, the wash is mostly theoretical. Consolidation matters more than raw duration. Get this. Micro disruptions don't have to be obvious. A thermostat clicking on and off can nudge you across arousal thresholds. A late-night group chat you didn't check still drives anticipatory vigilance. Even reflux from a late meal can spike many awakenings you won't remember. The result is the same. Noradrenaline doesn't stay low long enough for the space to widen and the AQP4 gates to hum. A micro story to make it concrete. A new parent, month 2. The baby stirs every 90 minutes. Nobody's in crisis, but sleep is in slivers. She starts forgetting words mid-sentence and walking into rooms without remembering why. Her sleep tracker shows 7.5 hours in bed, but deep sleep collapses to a few soaked minutes. 2 small levers, side sleeping with a slight head incline, and 5 minutes of nasal resonance breathing before the last feed. Don't add hours. They stabilize pressure, reduce arousals between stirs, and lengthen N3 bouts from fragments to blocks. Within 10 days, the missing nouns come back. Not because she slept more, but because the drain finally opened long enough to run. Debt compounds. Miss deep sleep for a week and you feel it. Miss it for months and baseline shifts. The brain adjusts expectations downward. Fog becomes the new normal. A single catch-up night helps, but it's not a clean slate. Glymphatic clearance shows night-to-night variability, and the richest surges are front-loaded in early cycles. Go to bed late, clip the first long N3 episode, and you can't fully rebuild it at dawn. You're stepping over the best pressure gradient of the entire 24 hours. So how do you tilt the odds toward N3 without adding hours? You protect the switch and the timing. Keep noradrenaline low by avoiding sleep fragmentation. No stimulants late, no alcohol blocks posing as sleep, and fewer alerts that yank you toward wake. Align circadian signals so the first sleep cycle is heavy on slow waves. Strong morning light, a steady bedtime, and an early temperature drop. You're not hacking sleep. You're removing frictions, so the machinery runs the schedule it already wants. One more angle that's easy to ignore: breathing stability. When you nasal breathe gently, especially as you drift off, intrathoracic pressure swings are smoother. That steadiness shows up upstairs as calmer venous return and more reliable arterial pulses at the CSF entry points. Mouth breathing and snoring are turbulence, bigger swings, more microarousals, and less time inside the slow wave envelope. If your nose is chronically blocked, you're fighting the wash before it even starts. None of this requires perfection. You'll still have late nights, early flights, and seasons of broken sleep. The point is leverage. By stacking conditions that favor N3, timing, quiet, darkness, temperature, airway, and a calm, autonomic tone, you get longer, cleaner runs of deep sleep with the same clock time. And every clean run is a shift where the night crew can clear the floor. Protect that, and tomorrow's brain feels like it was actually washed. Night rituals that open the floodgates. You don't need a lab to open the drain. You need a boring, repeatable evening that tells your brain what time it is. Start with timing. Pick a consistent sleep window and defend it. The glymphatic surge is front-loaded into the first deep sleep bout, so when your bedtime drifts, the surge does too. If you go down late, you clip the heaviest rinse. Anchor the start and the wake time, and let everything else orbit that. Light is the loudest cue. After sunset, blue heavy light tells your clock it's still daytime and stalls melatonin. That delays the noradrenaline drop that widens the extracellular space. Translation: fewer slow waves, flatter CSF surges. 2 hours before bed, dim house lights, shift screens to warm, and push big screens out of your face. If you have overhead LEDs, use lamps at eye level or lower. The angle matters more than you think. In the morning, do the opposite. Get outside light in your eyes early. Night and day are a matched pair. Caffeine is a timing landmine. It blocks adenosine, the molecule that builds sleep pressure and deep wave power. Even if you fall asleep fine, a late cup shaves N3 from the inside. As a rule, set your cutoff 8 to 10 hours before bed. Sensitive? Make it earlier. Hidden sources count: green tea, pre-workout, dark chocolate, and some sleepy herbal mixes sneak in stimulants. Don't build a dam in the same river you're trying to flush. Cool the core to deepen the waves. Your body needs to drop a degree or so to enter consolidated N3. A warm shower or bath an hour before bed sounds backwards, but it works. You vasodilate the skin, then dump heat after, which lowers core temperature. Pair that with a cool, dark room, around 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, and light, breathable bedding. Heavy comforters feel cozy, but trap heat. Try a heavier blanket with a breathable insert, so you get pressure without overheating. If your feet are ice blocks, warm socks can paradoxically help core cooling by letting the rest of you shed heat. Alcohol is the friendly saboteur. It sedates. So you think you're sleeping, but it fragments deep sleep and spikes noradrenaline rebounds later in the night. If you're going to drink, do it earlier, limit quantity, and hydrate. Your rule of thumb: if you can still feel it at lights out, your wash is taking a pay cut. Late meals push reflux, insulin, and body temperature up. 3 ways to slice slow waves. Finish dinner at least 3 hours before bed, earlier if you can. Keep the last plate lighter on fat and heavy spice if you're prone to reflux. If you're training, shift intense sessions to the afternoon. Late night intervals drive adrenaline and body heat into the exact window you want calm. Gentle mobility or a slow walk after dinner helps both glucose and vagal tone without waking you up. Now stack the posture and airway pieces you can feel. Side sleeping beats back or stomach positions for clearance in animal studies, and in people it usually reduces snoring and airway collapse. Add a slight head incline, 5 to 10 degrees, using an adjustable base or pillow wedge to help venous return and take pressure off the neck. Before bed, clear your nose. A saline rinse, and if needed, a nasal strip can turn a fight into a glide. If you mouth breathe at night, try gentle tape training while you read or watch TV in the evening to teach your lips closed. Don't jump straight to taping asleep if you're congested or have diagnosed apnea. Get your airway unlocked first. Then use breath as the quiet primer for the pressure pump. For 5 to 10 minutes, sit or lie down and breathe through your nose at roughly 6 breaths per minute. About a 5-second inhale, 5-second exhale. Keep it light and diaphragmatic. You're not trying to gas up on oxygen. You're stabilizing intrathoracic pressure, lowering sympathetic tone, and letting the noradrenaline floor fall. If you feel tingly or air hungry, you're overbreathing. Back off and make each breath smaller. Micro habits round this out. Kill needless alerts an hour before bed so your brain isn't listening for a ping. Put the phone on a counter, not the nightstand. Set the thermostat to stop cycling loud fans. Lay out tomorrow's clothes. Write down the one thing you need to remember and close the mental loop that would have woken you at 3 a.m. None of this is glamorous. All of it widens pipes you can't see. If you need a sequence, use this. Pick a fixed bedtime and wake time. Finish dinner 3 hours before bed. Take a warm shower 1 hour before. Dim and warm your lights. Clear your nose. Set your room cool and quiet. Do 5 minutes of 6 per minute nasal breathing. Sleep on your side with a slight incline. That stack protects the noradrenaline drop, strengthens the pulse pump, keeps AQP4 exchanging, and clears the exits. It's a car wash you build with habits, the weird then posture run every night. Your brain has a favorite side. Your brain has a favorite sleeping side, and it's not a personality test, it's plumbing. In animal studies with dynamic contrast MRI, tracers cleared faster when the body lay on its side, the lateral position, compared with lying on the back or stomach. That aligns with a few boring, crucial mechanics: airway stability, venous return from the head, and pressure gradients that steer fluid. You don't feel any of that, but your neck veins, your tongue, and those perivascular sleeves do. Let's start with the airway. On your back, gravity drags the tongue and soft palate toward the throat. The airway narrows, turbulence rises, snoring shows up, and with it, bigger intrathoracic pressure swings. Those swings yank you toward microarousals you'll never remember, but your noradrenaline system absolutely does. Side sleeping tilts the geometry. The tongue has somewhere to fall that isn't straight backward. Snoring risk drops. Pressure swings tame down. The wash hates turbulence. Lateral sleep reduces it. Venous return is the quiet half of the story. Blood that goes up must come down. When neck angles are awkward, chin jammed to sternum, pillows stacked like a fort, jugular outflow kinks. That backs up venous pressure in the head and raises resistance where CSF wants to exit into perivenous spaces and meningeal lymphatics. A slight head elevation, 5 to 10 degrees, opens those pathways. Think gentle ramp, not sitting up. You're lowering back pressure on the exits so the heartbeat's microplunger doesn't push against the clogged drain. Right side or left? The animal data didn't crown a universal winner. In real bedrooms, details decide. If reflux wakes you, left side can keep acid lower in the stomach. If nasal congestion favors one nostril, the more open side often feels better. If your heart races with left side anxiety, go right. Heart mechanics make some people more aware of beats on the left. The principle isn't ideology, it's lateral over supine or prone, with comfort that preserves stillness. Prone sleeping, the stomach position, looks tempting for snorers, but it trades one set of problems for another. Neck rotation compresses vessels and narrows the upper airway at odd angles. Chest pressure restricts diaphragmatic motion, and you end up mouth breathing into the pillow. More turbulence, more arousals, more sympathetic tone. If you're stuck on your stomach, a low, thin pillow and slight torso elevation can reduce the choke points, but side sleeping still wins. Micro adjustments add up. Use a pillow that fills the space between ear and shoulder so the neck stays neutral, not tilted toward the mattress or ceiling. Hugging a body pillow locks the top shoulder forward and keeps you from rolling onto your back at 3 a.m. If you use an adjustable base or a wedge, angle the whole upper body a touch so the head and chest rise together. Stacking pillows only bends the neck. Aim for an easy chin-throat gap, 2 to 3 finger widths, so jugulars aren't pinched. Now connect posture to nose. A blocked nose turns side sleeping into mouth breathing, which spikes those pressure swings we just calmed. 10 seconds of saline rinse before bed, a quick check for allergens in the room, and if needed, a nasal strip can turn a fight into laminar flow. When you keep nasal breathing on its rails, you stabilize intrathoracic pressure and protect the noradrenaline drop that widens extracellular space. Posture is leverage. Airway is the multiplier. There's also the don't fight physics rule. Heavy, soft mattresses can sink the shoulder and twist the spine, subtly kinking the neck. If your arm keeps going numb, you're likely compressing the thoracic outlet. Another hit to venous return. A slightly firmer surface, or a zone topper, that lets the shoulders sink without collapsing the neck fixes more brain fog than it has any right to. A quick at-home stack, set a slight upper body incline, pick a side that keeps reflux quiet and the nose open, fit a pillow to your shoulder width, use a body pillow to anchor, clear your nose, and keep the chin gently away from the chest. None of this changes your total hours. It changes whether your heartbeat's pump strokes meet open gates and clear exits. That's the difference between a wash that whispers through and a night where pressure and position keep jamming the drain. Breathing, CO2, and the pressure pump. Position sets the stage, breath runs the pressure show. Every inhale lowers intrathoracic pressure, drawing venous blood toward the heart. Every exhale eases it back. Those swings travel up the neck and skull, nudging venous outflow and the perivascular spaces where CSF slides. If the swings are smooth, the heartbeat's microplunger meets steady back pressure and the wash glides. If the swings are choppy, the plumbing fights turbulence all night. Nasal breathing is the first rule. Air through the nose filters, warms, and humidifies, but mechanically. It also keeps breath smaller and steadier. That steadiness means gentler pressure gradients and fewer microarousals. The nose also produces a touch of nitric oxide that helps tune vascular tone in the upper airway and lungs. Subtle, but it pushes the system toward calm. Mouth breathing, by contrast, opens the throttle. Larger tidal volumes, drier tissues, and louder snoring amplify pressure swings. Bigger oscillations yank you toward wake, spike noradrenaline, and pinch the extracellular space just when you want it wide. CO2 sits at the center of this. Overbreathing, too fast, too deep, blows off carbon dioxide. Low CO2 nudges blood vessels to constrict and ramps sympathetic tone. Tighter vessels mean less compliant pathways for the CSF heartbeat to ride, and a more jittery autonomic system makes arousals more likely. You don't need lab gear to feel it. If you're sighing, yawning, or feeling air hungry while deep breathing, you're pushing too hard. At night, that pattern keeps you skimming above deep sleep, breaking the noradrenaline drop that opens the drain. Snoring and sleep apnea supercharge the problem. Obstruction forces you to generate huge negative pressures to pull air in. Those pressure spikes slam the chest pump, rattle venous return, and trigger brief awakenings that detonate noradrenaline. The wash collapses because the switch never stays down. If a bed partner hears choking pauses, or you wake with a dry mouth and headaches, get screened. Airway treatment isn't just about oxygen. It's about restoring the calm pressure field glymphatic flow needs. Simple levers move a lot here. Keep the nose open, rinse with saline at night, manage allergens, and use a nasal strip if you're borderline congested. Train the lips to stay together before bed. 10 minutes of gentle tape while reading conditions the habit without risk. Aim the breath low and quiet, belly first, chest second. Think barely there inhales and relaxed, unforced exhales. You're not trying to fill a balloon, you're trying to stop yanking on the pressure rope. Resonance breathing is the clean primer. About 6 breaths per minute, roughly a 5-second inhale and 5-second exhale, for 5 to 10 minutes before lights out, brings your cardiovascular system into a smooth rhythm. Baroreceptors in your arteries sense each beat and each breath. And at this tempo, their feedback loops align. Heart rate variability rises, sympathetic tone falls, and blood pressure oscillations shrink. Upstairs, those calmer waves mean the arterial plunger meets less resistance and the venous exits don't whipsaw. If counting makes you tense, use cues. Breathe through the nose as if you're fogging a window quietly on the exhale, but keep the mouth closed. Let the lower ribs widen a touch on the inhale and melt on the exhale. If you feel lightheaded or tingly, you're overdoing it. Make each breath smaller rather than faster. The goal is comfort and stillness, not performance. Tie breath to posture. On your side with a slight incline and a clear nose, this pattern settles quickly. The body pillow you're hugging anchors the rib cage so the diaphragm can move without the shoulders hiking. That keeps the airflow nasal and the pressure swings contained. The payoff is invisible. Fewer arousals, deeper N3 stretches, and more time with the extracellular space wide and AQP4 exchanging. One last guardrail. Stimulants and late screens push breathing faster. If you've cut caffeine on time and dimmed the lights, your breath will cooperate. If you haven't, you'll fight your own biology. Breath is the lever you can move tonight. Keep it through the nose, keep it small, sync it at 6, and let the pump work. Your body clock is the foreman. Even perfect posture and breathing won't save a broken clock. The glymphatic wash doesn't just need darkness, it needs the right time. Your circadian system, the master clock in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, sets the chemical stage that drops noradrenaline at night, widens extracellular space, and times those CSF surges. If the clock's off, the switch doesn't flip cleanly, and the pump pushes against half-open gates. Here's the lever with the most reach. Morning light. Bright, outdoor light in your eyes within an hour waking locks melatonin to the evening and schedules the noradrenaline descent for night. No window pane cheats here. Glass cuts intensity. 5 to 10 minutes on a clear day, 20 to 30 if it's overcast, does more than an app and a supplement combined. You're telling the clock, start the countdown now, so the first sleep cycle arrives heavy with slow waves. While that's sinking the day, darkness reserves the night. After sunset, dim and warm your lights, and let screens fade from your face. You're not just protecting melatonin, you're preventing a mistimed alert signal that keeps noradrenaline high when it should fall. The payoffs hide in architecture. Deeper N3 early, steadier CSF tides, and less chopping of the wash by stray. Arousals. Meals carry timestamps too. Late dinners lift body temperature and insulin at the moment you want both dropping. They also push reflux, a sneaky arousal machine. Aim to land dinner 3 or more hours before bed. Keep late night snacks small and low in fat and sugar to avoid a glucose spike that flattens slow wave power. Your gut is part of the schedule. Move it earlier and the brain follows. Exercise is a double-edged clock hand. Vigorous sessions in the late afternoon build slow wave intensity that night without jacking alertness at bedtime. Push high-intensity work late, and you're reheating the system, raising catecholamines and crowding the N3 window. If evenings are your only option, make it moderate. Mobility, easy cardio, or a walk after dinner. You want warmth that leaves, not heat that lingers. Travel and shift work strain the system differently. Crossing time zones yanks light, meals, and sleep apart. You can still guide the clock. Use bright light exposure in the target morning and avoid it late local time to steer melatonin. If you're advancing your schedule, a low dose of melatonin a couple hours before your intended bedtime can pull you forward. If you're delaying, use morning light and avoid melatonin until the new evening feels natural. Keep meals on destination time as fast as you can and anchor a short, earlier nap rather than spraying micro-sleeps across the day. You're stitching cues into a coherent story the clock can believe. Shift work asks for guardrails, not purity. If you're on nights, build a fake morning after your shift. Dark glasses outside, then a bright light burst when you're safe indoors and winding towards your main sleep. Keep the bedroom cold and cave dark, and use white noise to drown daytime chaos. Eat your largest meal before the shift, lighter during, and little to nothing right before sleep. On days off, choose either to stay partially aligned, bed a bit later, wake a bit later, or flip hard with morning light, exercise, and an early dinner. Drifting aimlessly between both is the brain fog jackpot. Now tie it back to the switch. Noradrenaline doesn't just fall because you're horizontal. It falls because the clock says night, and you stop poking the bear. Every after-dark stimulant, caffeine, nicotine, energy drinks masquerading as teas, keeps that floor from dropping. Every midnight Slack ping or episode cliffhanger plants a tiny stay ready in the locus coeruleus. You may be asleep, but the switch flickers, the extracellular space narrows, and CSF waves flatten. Temperature is a circadian partner. Body heat naturally dips at night. Help it. Time heat earlier. Sauna or hot bath in late afternoon or early evening, so the vasodilation and core cooling land before bed. Do cold earlier in the day if you use it. Late plunges wake you. In the last hour, a warm shower kickstarts skin heat loss. Then a cool bedroom sustains it. That thermal slope is a timetable written on your blood vessels. There's one more quiet cue: consistency. Fixed bed and wake times lower when, uncertainty, which lowers anticipatory arousal. The brain stops scanning for exceptions and relaxes into the pattern. This is less about willpower and more about removing coin flips. When the system knows what's next, noradrenaline lets go. The AQP4 gates meet open space, and the heartbeat's micro-plunger gets to work. Micro-story. A nurse on rotating shifts is drowning in fog. She keeps her room dark, side sleeps on a wedge, breathes through her nose, but the mornings feel hungover. She picks 3 anchors: bright light at the start of day on duty weeks, a low-dose melatonin 2 hours before target sleep when flipping, and fixed meal slots that match the current shift. She stops snacking at the end of nights and times a warm shower before her anchor sleep. 2 cycles later, deep sleep blocks double. Same hours, new timing. The drain finally runs when the clock says it should. What you eat and when changes the wash. Food isn't just fuel, it's timing signals, temperature nudges, and pressure on the plumbing. Start with water. CSF is mostly water, and dehydration makes every fluid move stingier. But chugging a liter at 10 p.m. buys you bathroom wake-ups that shred deep sleep. Front-load your fluids, curve intake earlier in the day, taper late afternoon, and take small sips with dinner. You're aiming for a steady river by day, a quiet stream by night. Salt and heaviness matter because they pull on blood volume and reflux. A sodium bomb at dinner drags fluid out of tissues into the bloodstream, bumps blood pressure, and can push nighttime awakenings. A huge, high-fat plate sits in the stomach for hours, increases core temperature, and nudges acid up the esophagus when you lie down. That's 2 hits. Heat that fights slow waves and microarousals from reflux. Keep evening meals lighter, earlier, and easier to digest. Protein moderate, fat-controlled, fiber steady, spice within reason. Glycemic spikes are sneaky. A big sugar hit before bed raises insulin and body heat and flattens slow wave power. The crash a couple hours later can kick you toward wake. If you need a snack, pair carbs with protein or a little fat to blunt the spike and keep the portion small. Better yet, land dinner 3 or more hours before lights out so your temperature has time to fall and your gut isn't staging a protest. There's a brain nutrition layer that's not magic, just maintenance. Omega-3 fatty acids support vascular flexibility and glial health. EPA and DHA show up in fish like salmon and sardines. Polyphenols from berries, cocoa, olive oil, and colorful plants ride with vascular tone and inflammation control. You're not detoxing the brain with a superfood. You're keeping the pipes supple and the astrocyte neighborhood calm, so AQP4 stays where it belongs. Caffeine lives where chemistry meets denial. It blocks adenosine, the sleep pressure molecule tied to slow waves. Even if you fall asleep, deep sleep takes the hit hours later. Set a cutoff 8 to 10 hours before bed, earlier if you're sensitive. Watch the decaf trap. Some decaf still carries a dose. Hidden stimulants show up in green and black teas, pre-workouts, kombuchas, and even sleep blends spiked with yerba mate or guayusa. If the label says focus, it usually means later arousals. Nicotine is another late grenade. It tightens vessels and spikes alertness. Vape or smoke in the evening and you'll feel it in shredded N3, even if you swear you sleep hard. If quitting isn't on deck, at least move the last hit earlier and trim the dose at night. Supplements sit in the gray zone. Low-dose melatonin can help timing when you're shifting your clock, not as a nightly sedative. Magnesium glycinate or threonate can ease muscle tension and nudge parasympathetic tone for some people. Glycine, 3 grams before bed, can modestly drop core temperature and subjectively deepen sleep. None of these open the drain if the big levers, light, timing, alcohol, meals, are wrong. Think garnish, not main course. Hydration rhythm pays dividends if you make it a habit. A tall glass on waking, steady water with meals, then a taper after mid-afternoon. If you train, rehydrate earlier, not late. Electrolytes can help daytime intake stick without overdoing plain water, which can flush sodium and leave you peeing all evening. The goal is a calm bladder and stable blood volume when you lie down, not a late-night relay to the bathroom. Air quality sneaks into the diet category because what you breathe is intake. Indoor pollutants, cooking smoke, volatile organic compounds, microdust, irritate airways and push mouth breathing at night. Better ventilation and a HEPA filter reduce congestion, which stabilizes pressure swings and protects deep sleep. You're feeding the pump gentler air. Alcohol deserves its own warning label. It looks like a nightcap. It acts like a wrecking ball. Even 2 drinks near bedtime fragment sleep architecture. Shrink slow wave blocks and spark noradrenaline rebounds at 3 or 4 a.m. If you drink, pull it earlier. Take water between pours and stop with enough runway that you feel sober at lights out. The brain can't run a wash cycle while it's clearing ethanol. Then there's timing discipline. Meals are time cues to your clock and heat sources to your core. Land breakfast after morning light to reinforce day. Keep lunch substantial. Make dinner earlier, smaller, and simpler. If you lift, put the heaviest training midday to late afternoon, fuel it, and let your temperature fall before bed. A slow walk after dinner smooths glucose and primes the parasympathetic system without inflating body heat. A micro story to seal it. A sales manager swears his sleep is fine, but mornings feel like molasses. His nights, late takeout, a glass of wine while answering emails, dark chocolate at 10. He shifts dinner to 6:30, swaps the wine for sparkling water, moves chocolate to lunch, and adds a 10-minute walk after eating. He front-loads hydration, cuts caffeine at noon, and keeps a steady magnesium dose with dinner. 2 weeks in, bathroom trips vanish, deep sleep inches up, and the 7 a.m. name recall stops failing. Same bed, same alarm, different inputs, steadier wash. Food and timing don't scrub proteins out of your brain. Sleep does. But meals steer temperature, hormones, and arousals that decide whether deep sleep shows up. Eat to make space for the wash. Earlier, lighter, steadier, and the night crew can finally do its job. Heat, cold, and the vascular switches. Temperature is a steering wheel for blood vessels, and vessels run the wash. Get this right, and you deepen N3 without adding minutes. Get it wrong, and you fragment the cycle you just spent all day setting up. Start earlier than you think. A warm bath or shower 1 to 2 hours before bed is a quiet cheat code. The warmth pulls blood to the skin, vasodilation. So when you step out, you dump heat and your core. Temperature falls. That drop is the body's permission slip for deep sleep. It's not about scalding, it's about creating a gradient. 10 to 20 minutes in water that feels comfortably warm is enough. Pair it with a cool, dark bedroom and breathable bedding, and you've built the slope your clock expects. Warm skin, cooling core, drifting brain. Local heat works too. Warm hands and feet before lights out help the body unload heat. because those regions are radiator panels packed with arteriovenous shunts. If your feet are cold, your core hangs on to heat and slow waves lag. Slip on light socks or use a heating pad on low at your toes for a few minutes, then turn it off. You're opening the valves that let temperature fall. It's simple physics applied to biology. Sauna sits upstream as vascular training. Regular sessions, earlier in the day or late afternoon, drive rhythmic vasodilation and sweating. Over weeks, that can improve endothelial function and blood pressure control. Better arteries, better micropiston at night. If you use sauna as a nightly ritual, time it so you're cooling, not cooking, at bedtime. Finish at least 2 to 3 hours before lights out. You want the post-sauna cool down to dovetail with evening melatonin, not fight it with lingering heat. Cold has a place, but not near the pillow. Morning or midday cold exposure, cool outdoor air, a brief cold shower finisher, can sharpen alertness and nudge circadian amplitude without stepping on nighttime sleep. Drop cold too late, and you kick adrenaline when you need the noradrenaline floor to fall. Late cold can also trigger afterdrop, continued core cooling after you've left the cold, which sounds good but often shows up as shivering and fragmented first sleep cycles. If you love cold, schedule it when sunlight is up and hours away from bed. There's a smaller, easy lever: room microclimate. Set the thermostat to a steady cool around 18 to 20 degrees Celsius and avoid big on-off fan cycles that bump you toward wake. If your partner likes it warm, a dual-weight duvet or a personal cooling pad on your side solves the tug-of-war without heating your core. Heavy blankets can calm you by pressure, but if they trap heat, they cost you slow waves. Use a breathable insert so pressure and airflow can coexist. Tie heat and cold back to the pump. Vasodilation at the skin helps core cooling, which aligns the circadian drop in noradrenaline. When noradrenaline falls, cells shrink. Extracellular space widens and AQP4 exchange ramps. Cooler core plus calm autonomics equals bigger CSF tides and N3. Meanwhile, training vessels with daytime heat and sensible cardio makes arteries more compliant, improving the amplitude of that heartbeat micro-plunger at night. You're not forcing the wash, you're giving it wide, smooth pipes and the right pressure gradients. Caveats matter. Don't take extremes to bed. A scorching bath right before lights out leaves you flushed and restless. A hard ice bath at 9 p.m. will wake you and jam the switch. If you have cardiovascular disease, uncontrolled hypertension, or pregnancy concerns, clear sauna or aggressive temperature work with your clinician. For apnea, heat and cold timing won't fix the airway. They just polish the edges once you've opened the nose and stabilized breathing. Micro story. A grad student sleeps 7.5 hours but wakes thick-headed. Nights look like this: late hit, hot apartment, cold feet, and doom scrolling until midnight. He moves intervals to 5 p.m., takes a warm shower at 9, dries off, pulls on light socks, sets the room to 19, and shuts off loud fan cycling. He keeps his same bedtime. Within a week, deep sleep climbs, morning word-finding returns, and the wash finally feels like it ran. Same hours. Better gradients, inflammation, got the memo. And leaky brain timeline. The wash you run at 20 isn't the wash you get at 60. Arteries that once flex with every beat start to stiffen. That tiny periarterial piston, the heartbeat-driven push that feeds CSF into the brain's sleeves, loses amplitude. The pump still runs, but each stroke moves less. Meanwhile, the exits don't stay pristine either. Meningeal lymphatic vessels, those quiet service roads along the dura, grow sluggish with age and inflammation, so even when fluid reaches the edge, the handoff to deep cervical nodes can bog down. Inside the tissue, the gates change places. Aquaporin 4 channels are supposed to sit neatly on astrocyte end feet, right where CSF meets brain. With age, injury, or chronic inflammation, AQP4 drifts mislocalization. It's like moving faucets off the sink. Water's still in the house, but not where you need it. Exchange slows, and waste that used to ride out in deep sleep spends longer marinating between cells. None of this happens overnight. It's a timeline. Subtle at first, then obvious. Early hints don't look dramatic. Smell fades a little. The front row seats in the olfactory bulb are sensitive to inflammation and metabolic waste. Balance feels less automatic when you turn quickly. Your mood has a gentle drift toward flat. Mornings need longer to boot. You write it off as busy or getting older, but what's changing are the mechanics. Less arterial flex, narrower extracellular space on average, AQP4, not where it shines, and exit lanes with more resistance. Layer in hits that accelerate the slide. Hypertension hammers the arterial wall, stiffening the very pump the wash depends on. Traumatic brain injury, big or small, jostles astrocyte architecture and scrambles AQP4 polarity. Long-standing metabolic inflammation from poor sleep, air pollution, or untreated apnea swells tissue and roughens venous return. Each factor adds friction. The switch still exists, but the system needs a bigger drop in noradrenaline and cleaner conditions to reach the same clearance you got for free in your 20s. Here's where it's tempting to shrug and call it fate. It isn't. The system is plastic. You won't rewind the clock, but you can support each bottleneck. Aerobic fitness improves endothelial function and arterial compliance. The micro-plunger gets springier. Blood pressure control lowers mechanical stress on vessel walls. Anti-inflammatory habits, better air, decent diet, earlier dinners, regular sleep, calm astrocytes, and help AQP4 stay polarized where it works best. You're not forcing flow, you're making the path smoother, so each heartbeat moves more with less waste. Think through the inflow, exchange, outflow lens. Inflow, walking, cycling, or swimming at moderate intensity, 4 to 5 days a week, widens vessels range and raises nitric oxide signaling. That turns a rigid piston into a responsive one. Exchange, deep consolidated N3 protects the nightly noradrenaline drop that widens space. Cut alcohol, caffeine late, and blue light, and you defend the very state that lets AQP4 do its job. Outflow, side sleeping with slight incline, nasal patency, and good neck posture lower venous back pressure so meningeal lymphatics don't hand off against the dam. Microstory. A 58-year-old project manager assumes memory slips are just aging. He's got a mild concussion history, borderline blood pressure, and snores. He treats the airway, nasal steroids, saline, a mandibular device from a sleep dentist, and picks afternoon brisk walks most days. Dinner moves to early evening, wine lands only on weekends and early. He sets a wedge under the mattress, clears the nose nightly, and trains 5 minutes of slow nasal breathing pre-bed. 3 months later, his resting heart rate dips, deep sleep extends, and those mid-sentence blanks thin out. The arteries didn't turn 20 again, but the pump pushes into wider space with cleaner exits. The olfactory hint matters. If smells dull in morning's fog, check the air. Traffic pollution and indoor particulates inflame airways and brain-adjacent linings. A HEPA filter in the bedroom, better kitchen ventilation, and fewer irritants lower nightly congestion, which steadies pressure swings and reduces microarousals. That's exchange protection by way of cleaner inputs. Blood pressure is the quiet keystone. Each nighttime surge pounds the periarterial sleeves. Work with your clinician. Small meds, tweaks, salt scents, and fitness upgrades do more for the wash than any supplement stack. Add strength training twice a week. Muscle is glucose control, temperature stability, and vascular support. Better daytime glucose swings mean calmer nights, less thermal noise, and fewer arousals. Don't ignore head injuries either. Even old TBIs echo through astrocyte polarity. Prioritize the consolidation levers, timing, darkness, nasal breathing, side sleeping, to maximize whatever exchange you can reclaim. If headaches, light sensitivity, or dizziness linger, get evaluated. Targeted vestibular and autonomic rehab can reduce arousal spikes that otherwise keep noradrenaline high. And remember the meningeal highways at the edge. Neck posture is mundane but real. Hours hunched at a laptop, chin tucked, shoulders up, turns jugulars into kinks. Raise the screen, let the chin float off the chest, and give those vessels a friendlier geometry by day so they're not starting the night already cramped. A final guardrail, meds that boost noradrenaline or fragment sleep, late stimulants, some antidepressants, decongestants, can crimp the nightly space expansion. Don't guess. Talk to your clinician about timing. Often the fix is schedule, not cessation. Aging bends the system. It doesn't break the rules. You still win by protecting the switch, supporting the pump, keeping the gates where they belong, and clearing the exits. The earlier you start, the easier it is. But even late, the brain rewards rhythm. Give it clean nights, and the wash finds its way back. Toxins, myths, and the detox trap. Let's clear something up before a juice cleanse finds your credit card. The glymphatic system isn't a magic flush for sins. It's a nightly maintenance crew moving metabolic byproducts. Traffic pollution, indoor particulates inflame airways and brain-adjacent linings. A HEPA filter in the bedroom, better air, decent diet, earlier dinners, regular sleep. Cut alcohol, caffeine late, and blue light, and you defend the very state that lets AQP4 do its job. Beta-amyloid, tau fragments, lactate, stray proteins, out of brain tissue toward venous sleeves and meningeal lymphatics. It's powerful, but it's not a filter you can supercharge with a 3-day green smoothie. The switch is sleep, the pump is heartbeat, the gates are AQP4, and the exits ride lymph. That's the machine. Any detox claim that skips those parts is set dressing. Real threats don't glow neon on a supplement label. They float in the air in clutter routines. Fine particulates from traffic and cooking, volatile organic compounds off-gassing from paints and cleaners, and indoor smoke inflame airways and meningeal linings. Irritation means congestion. Congestion means mouth breathing, bigger pressure swings, and more microarousals. That's how air pollution sneaks into brain clearance, by shredding the sleep architecture that opens the drain. Better ventilation, a HEPA filter in the bedroom, and cleaner indoor materials do more for nightly wash than any colon cleanse ever will. There's also the solvent story. Certain workplace exposures, industrial solvents, pesticides, track with higher neurodegenerative risk over decades. Not because the glymphatic system fails on contact, but because chronic low-level hits and sleep disruption stack on aging arteries and wandering AQP4. If your job rides those fumes, defend the edges. Certified masks, better airflow, strict decontamination before home, and a militant sleep routine that gives your pump its best chance. Supplements live in a hopeful middle. A few have reasonable roles, used precisely. Low-dose melatonin times the clock. It doesn't deepen sleep by force. If you're shifting time zones or wrestling late light, 0.5 milligram to 1 milligram a couple hours before target bedtime can advance the schedule. Magnesium, glycinate or threonate helps some people relax. It won't open AQP4 or replace airway care. Glycine at about 3 grams before bed can nudge core temperature down a notch and make sleep feel deeper. These are garnishes on a plate that's mostly timing, darkness, cool, posture, and breath. Beware the hype. Brain detox teas spiked with yerba mate or guayusa smuggle stimulants that flatten slow-wave power. Night shred fat burners tag team caffeine with yohimbine or synephrine, pure fragmentation. Charcoal binds toxins in the gut, not in your brain's interstitial space. Taken at night, it can also interfere with meds. Megadosing antioxidants sound smart until they jangle your stomach or backfire on training adaptation and sleep. If the pitch ignores circadian timing, slow-wave sleep, or breathing stability, it's ignoring the only clearance cycle that matters. What about heavy metals and microplastics? They're stories in progress. Yes, they show up in tissues. Yes, chronic exposure is concerning. The glymphatic angle is indirect. Inflammation, endothelial dysfunction, and sleep disruption. Your best defenses are upstream. Clean water, less plastic contact with heat, cautious fish choices for mercury, and better home filtration. Downstream, you protect the wash the same way. Consistent sleep, cleaner air, fitter vessels, calmer autonomics. There's a trap inside the trap. Chasing exotic detox protocols becomes its own stressor. New powders, odd fasting windows, late-night saunas, wearable alarms pinging HRV at 2 a.m. Each adds arousal. Arousal lifts noradrenaline. Noradrenaline narrows space. The drain you're trying to open gets squeezed by the very vigilance you bought to help it. The fix is boring. Fewer variables, steadier timing, quieter nights. Let's put stakes on a human face. A designer with brain fog buys a stack. Charcoal, liver flush, nighttime thermogenics, late infrared sessions, sleep fractures. Mornings get worse. She strips it back, filters the bedroom air, ditches late stimulants, times a warm shower earlier, side sleeps on a slight incline, and runs 5 minutes of nasal resonance breathing. 2 weeks later, deep sleep expands and recall returns. Nothing detoxed. The machine finally ran. If you want a safe default, think environment, not elixirs. Fresher air, cleaner water, earlier meals, steadier light signals, and habits that respect the noradrenaline switch. The brain already has a drain. Your job isn't to invent one, it's to stop blocking it. The 30-day Unclog Protocol. You don't need perfect genes, you need sequence and discipline. 30 days, 4 simple phases, plus a rescue kit when life punches your schedule. We're stacking levers that protect the noradrenaline drop, keep the arterial micropiston elastic, hold AQP4 where it works, and clear the exits. Same hours, cleaner wash. Week 1 is circadian anchors. Start each morning with natural light in your eyes within an hour of waking. 10 minutes if sunny, 20 to 30 if overcast. No sunglasses yet, no window pane. That locks melatonin to evening and schedules the noradrenaline descent for night. Pick a fixed sleep window and guard it. Same bedtime, same wake time, 7 days a week. If you need to shift, move by 15 minutes per day, not a brute force hour. Caffeine cutoff is 8 to 10 hours before bed. If you're sensitive, make it earlier. Kill late focus, teas, and pre-workouts hiding stimulants. Build a hydration curve. Tall glass on waking, steady intake through lunch, then taper after mid-afternoon so your bladder isn't your alarm clock. Track just 4 things each morning. 1 name recall test. Think of a coworker or neighbor on command. Mood on a 1 to 5. Wake count you remember. And resting heart rate. You're drawing your baseline. Week 2 is airway and posture. Side sleeping beats back and stomach for clearance and snoring risk. Pick a side that calms reflux and keeps the more open nostril up. Add a 5 to 10 degree upper body incline with a wedge or adjustable base. Stack the torso, not just the neck. Fit a pillow to your shoulder width so the neck stays neutral. Hug a body pillow to stop the midnight roll to supine. Each night before bed, rinse your nose with saline. If you're borderline congested, add a nasal strip. Train lips together for 10 minutes while reading with gentle tape, not while sleeping yet, to condition nasal breathing. If you have choking pauses, morning headaches, or dry mouth, get screened for apnea. An airway fix multiplies everything else. During the day, lift the chin off the chest at your desk, 2 to 3 finger widths of space, so jugulars aren't kinked all afternoon before you ask them to drain at night. Week 3 is slow wave boosters. Heat early, cool late, schedule sauna or intense exercise for late afternoon so heat leaves by bedtime. An hour before lights out, take a warm shower or bath, then keep your bedroom at 18 to 20 degrees Celsius with steady airflow that doesn't cycle loud fans on and off. If your feet are ice blocks, light socks help the core cool. Dim and warm lights 2 hours before bed. Get big screens out of your face and drop overhead LEDs for lamps at eye level or lower. Finish dinner 3 or more hours before bed. Shrink late snacks. Alcohol moves earlier or off. If you feel it at lights out, your wash takes a pay cut. 5 to 10 minutes before bed, do nasal resonance breathing at about 6 breaths per minute, roughly a 5-second inhale and 5-second exhale. Light, diaphragmatic, comfortable. You're not filling balloons, you're smoothing pressure waves. Lay out tomorrow's clothes and write the one task you'll forget at 3 a.m. Close loops to prevent surprise arousals. Week 4 is movement and meals. Put your heaviest training in the afternoon. Brisk, walking, cycling, swimming, or strength. Far enough from bed that body heat can fall. Add 2 strength sessions weekly. Muscle steadies glucose and temperature. Keep evening workouts moderate if they must happen. Mobility, easy cardio, nothing that spikes adrenaline. Make dinner earlier and lighter. Moderate protein, controlled fat, steady fiber. If a snack is non-negotiable, pair carbs with protein in a small portion to blunt a glucose spike. Front-load hydration. Salt to taste at meals, not as a nighttime rescue. Fold in brain-friendly basics, omega-3 fish twice a week, colorful plants, olive oil, because supple vessels and calm glia keep AQP4 where it belongs. Watch the hidden stimulants, sleep teas, with mate or guayusa, kombucha late, decaf with a dose. Night of rescue is for chaos weeks, travel, deadlines, newborns. When you can't get the perfect night, protect the edges. On flights, wear dark glasses after your target sunset and get bright light on morning at destination. Eat on destination time as soon as possible. Skip heavy late meals. If advancing your bedtime, consider 5. 1 mg melatonin 2 to 3 hours before target sleep for a few nights. If delaying, save melatonin for the new evening. Build a mini stack wherever you land. Warm shower 1 hour before sleep. Dim lights, nasal rinse. 5 minutes of 6 per minute nasal breathing. Side sleep with a slight incline. If you're wrecked mid-afternoon, take a 15 to 20 minute nap before 3 p.m., not longer, so you don't steal slow waves from the night. Avoid the caffeine trap after noon. It trades tonight's wash for a foggy tomorrow. Keep the scoreboard simple. Each week, glance at your 4 numbers. Name recall, mood, remembered wakes, resting heart rate. You're looking for trends, not perfection. Fewer blanks, steadier mood, fewer wakes, and a gentle RHR drift downward. If a week stalls, check the big 3 first. Alcohol sneaking late, bedtime drifting, nasal congestion returning. Then nudge 1 lever, not 5. Consistency beats intensity here. This isn't a cleanse, it's plumbing maintenance. Light sets the clock, posture opens exits, breath steadies pressure, timing protects the noradrenaline drop, and movement keeps the micropiston springy. Give it 30 days. You won't add hours. You'll finally run the wash you already earn. 2 micro stories. Flip the switch. Desk worker, mid-30s, proud night owl. He wakes at 7 a.m. with a metallic taste and a word stuck behind his teeth. Named Skid. Mornings feel like wading through honey. He swears he sleeps 7.5, but his deep sleep graphs look like dotted lines. We strip it to levers. He fixes wake time at 7 a.m. every day, no mercy. He moves dinner to 6:30, adds a warm shower at 9 o'clock, and dims the house. 10 minutes before bed, he does quiet nasal resonance breathing. 5 seconds in, 5 out, lying on his right side with a 5-degree incline. He clears his nose with saline, sticks a nasal strip, and puts the phone in the kitchen. First 3 nights, nothing dramatic. Night 4, fewer wake-ups. Night 7, his first N3 block doubles. The next Monday, the 7 a.m. name recall test lands on the first try. He didn't add a minute to sleep. He aligned the clock, dropped noradrenaline, opened space, and gave the heartbeat clean exits. New parent, month 2. The baby feeds at 1 o'clock and 3:30. She's in bed by 10, out by 6, technically 8 hours. But the wash is shredded. Words evaporate mid-sentence. She hears phantom alerts. We don't chase perfection, we cut turbulence. She switches to side sleeping on a slight incline, fits a pillow to keep the neck neutral, and clears her nose before the second feed. 5 minutes of nasal breathing at 6 per minute before the last feed becomes ritual. She stops scrolling during the half wakes and keeps the room at 19 degrees. 10 days later, her tracker still shows interruptions, but deep sleep expands from scattered shards to 2 anchored blocks. The fog lifts enough to notice jokes again. Same baby, same hours, fewer arousals, calmer pressure, deeper N3 windows. The drain didn't need more time, it needed fewer rips in the slow-wave fabric. Both flips share a spine. Neither person biohacked. They remove friction. Late light, late meals, late stimulants, mouth breathing, supine pressure kinks. They protected the noradrenaline drop, stabilized intrathoracic swings, and let AQP force sit where it works. Micro changes multiplied. Posture plus airway plus timing plus breath. And here's the tease you felt the whole time. 1 habit tonight either drains or drowns. Fixed wake time. Side sleep with a gentle incline. Or 5 minutes of nasal resonance breathing. Pick one, run it for a week, and watch a small gate open to a larger wash. Every night is a choice between rinsing and rusting. The pipes either widen for waste to move, or pressure and noise keep yesterday stuck. If you want more stories of hidden body systems that decide how sharp you feel, subscribe now and turn on alerts. Then watch our episode on memory glitches to see how tonight's N3 shapes tomorrow's recall. Make one change tonight, meet a different brain in the morning. Source integrity and open questions. We've told a true story, not a fairy tale. Here's the backbone. In 2012, Jeffrey Iliff and Maiken Nedergaard used in vivo 2-photon imaging in mice to trace CSF moving along periarterial spaces into brain tissue and interstitial solutes, clearing along perivenous routes. That's the system we've called glymphatic, glia-guided flow through perivascular roadways. A year later, work from the same group linked clearance to sleep, showing far higher exchange when animals were in a sleep-like state. Separate lines of evidence mapped aquaporin 4 water channels to astrocyte end feet, making polarity at that membrane the gate for fluid exchange. The no lymphatics in the brain dogma cracked in 2015, when Antoine Louveau and Jonathan Kipnis, and independently Kerry Alitalo's team, identified meningeal lymphatic vessels in the dura lining the venous sinuses. Those vessels drain to deep cervical lymph nodes, providing an anatomical exit ramp for what the glymphatic inflow delivers. That doesn't mean pipes everywhere. It means peripheral-style lymphatics at the border and perivascular conduits inside. Sleep isn't a vibe in this story, it's the switch. Data in rodents show that during sleep, extracellular space volume can expand on the order of tens of percent, commonly cited around 60%, boosting convective exchange between CSF and interstitial fluid. Slow-wave sleep correlates with large coupled waves in blood volume and CSF inflow in human imaging, while higher frequency, wake-like EEG power tracks with less exchange. Fragmentation, apnea arousals, alcohol, late light, flattens slow-wave power and trims the nightly wash. Position is a lever with evidence, but caveats. Dynamic contrast MRI and tracer studies in anesthetized rodents reported more efficient solute transport in the lateral posture than supine or prone. That lines up with airway mechanics and venous outflow in humans, but the exact magnitude and universality of the effect in sleeping people are still open questions. Given the risks of snoring and apnea in supine sleep, the lateral recommendation is a pragmatic bet supported by physiology and early data. Breath sits between behavior and pressure. Research shows that respiratory and cardiac oscillations couple to CSF movement. Slow, steady nasal breathing reduces turbulence and stabilizes autonomic tone. Resonance frequency breathing at roughly 6 breaths per minute increases heart rate variability and smooths blood pressure waves. That's why 5 quiet minutes before bed are in the protocol. It's a primer, not a cure. Aging changes the hardware. Arterial stiffening reduces pulsatility, the micropump that drives periarterial inflow. Multiple studies link aging and injury to AQP4 mislocalization, meaning water channels drift from astrocyte end feet to other membranes, degrading exchange. Sleep quality often declines with age. Stack those trends, and clearance suffers. That's a plausible path tying poor sleep to protein aggregation and neurodegenerative risk. It's a pathway, not destiny, where the evidence is strong. The existence of glymphatic inflow and paravenous outflow in rodents, meningeal lymphatics in mammals, including humans, sleep-link boost in CSF-ISF exchange, the role of arterial pulsation, and the association between disturbed sleep and proteinopathies. Where it's suggestive, posture effects in humans, the precise contribution of REM to clearance, and how much resonance breathing moves the needle beyond general relaxation. Where it's still being mapped how much glymphatic flow contributes to human disease progression versus parallel mechanisms, and the best non-invasive markers to track it nightly. Confounders matter. Untreated sleep apnea, shift work, certain medications that elevate noradrenaline or fragment sleep, hypertension, TBI history, and indoor air quality can all bias outcomes. Animal anesthesia states don't equal human sleep. Rodent skulls and heart rates aren't ours. Some early human MRI signals used to infer CSF flow can be contaminated by motion or vascular artifacts. Newer protocols are improving that, but not perfect yet. Ethically, we've kept the claims where the data live. No invented quotes, no miracle supplements. When we said lateral helps, we grounded it in rodent imaging and human airway physics, and we flagged the human posture gap. When we pushed resonance breathing, we did it for autonomic smoothing tied to downstream CSF dynamics, not as a magic button. And when we pointed at AQP4 and aging, we kept it at mechanism and association, not guaranteed outcomes. Open questions to watch: how posture interacts with human venous anatomy during natural sleep, whether REM has a targeted clearance role for specific regions, sex and hormonal influences on AQP4 polarity and vessel compliance, how circadian misalignment shifts CSF wave timing, and the best practical biomarker, EEG delta power, neck lymph flow imaging, or a composite to track clearance capacity over time. One detail likely to prove crucial: standardized, artifact-resistant imaging of CSF-ISF exchange in sleeping humans across ages and disease states. The advice stands because it's low risk, high upside, and aimed at first principles. Protect slow-wave sleep, keep vessels compliant, open the airway, calm the pressure field, and anchor the clock so the noradrenaline floor drops on time. Where the science tightens, we'll tighten the playbook with it.